topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Legacy Leavers series on Success Secrets Exposed. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday mornings in Australia on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. The series showcases experts, changemakers, and disruptors leaving a lasting legacy with those sharing their wisdom with the world.
Good morning, good evening, and good day to you all, and welcome to another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Today we're going to be discussing neurochemicals, hormones, and mental performance with Kimberly Jarman, whose legacy is helping women perform at their highest potential to create the careers and or the lives that they wish, to leave generational impact without burning out and living in chronic stress. Kimberly is on a mission to liberate women from the constraints of self-imposed limitations and guide them towards that boundless potential that we all have. She's armed with a master's degree in counselling and brings a unique blend of expertise to her practice, melding together insights from mindset psychology, cutting-edge neuroscience, and the intricate dance of biochemistry to uncover the secrets to accelerate goal achievement, enhance well-being, and create the ability to live life on our own terms. So I am thrilled to introduce to you the powerhouse in the realm of mental performance and coaching, Kimberly Jarman.
Hi, Sally.
Hi, welcome. It's lovely to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation and where this adventure will absolutely take us. So thank you. I'd love to start and sort of set the scene a little bit. You talk about learning the hard way. So can I ask you to set the scene as to what that means, please?
Yeah. That seems like how I learned before coaching was the hard way. I have always been an athlete. And so it's very much ingrained in an athlete mindset to not quit. And I just would stay in miserable situations, relationships, jobs, for years. Let's try 9 years. Just hoping things would change and trying my best to change and it not, and watching things crumble and it's just going to get better. It's just going to get better. And it doesn't get better. So yeah.
I think we can all appreciate, which is why I wanted to open up with that, learning the hard way. We've all have the ability to look back with hindsight and go, I wish I'd done, blah, blah, all those sorts of things. But particularly when we find ourselves after that coaching and where we understand that there is actually an easy way, which is that sort of more flow. It might be hard work, yes, but it's less force and, drudgery and all those sorts of things. So I think that's such an important thing to highlight, that there often can be an easier way. It's definitely still work, but there's that opportunity for us to explore who we are and who we want to become in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I don't think I know any entrepreneur that's afraid of work. It's it's the grind and the graspiness that burns us out, and that, let's get rid of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is it. That's the difference, that grinding and that, that constant hustle, which feels like you're in that state of, I'm going to say, sort of flight or, stress, that which does just, tip us right out of our apple cart and, puts us into that crash and burn. And then you got to do the pick me up and let's go again. I've certainly done that myself.
Yeah. And a lot of women entrepreneurs actually start facing autoimmune diagnoses. I don't know if you knew that. There are a high percentage of women entrepreneurs that have hit that burnout end up with an autoimmune diagnosis.
Yeah, there you go. So another very good reason to catch it early enough so we can sort of preempt and prepare and rectify some of that stuff as well. Awesome. So on the note of, there was one thing, a comment that I really liked on your website, which was the common feeling that clients have when they come to you. So they've found you, they've obviously resonated with something you've said, and I've had lots of little resonance moments just going through your website and doing the research before we were speaking today. And you talked about that feeling of being meant for more. So talk us through, I suppose, a little bit of the journey as to where the problems your clients are having and what's going on for them, some of those commonalities as they come to you, and then some of the things that you're doing with them.
Yeah. They tell you in the coaching world that you end up coaching like the person like you were. And that was me for sure. Like I never knew I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I just knew like I was supposed to get a full-time job after I graduated college. And I remember sitting in a job for 9 years and like, is this it? It's like, is this it? Like, I know I have more potential and I know I'm meant for more. And so a lot of my clients, of course, are going to like resonate with that, right? Like, I know that I'm meant for more. I know I have more potential and I want to leave an impact. I want to do things that are meaningful and purposeful and fulfilling and help people and change things. I don't want to just sit here and do the same thing over again or work on something that's meaningless, like they just know inside of them, like there's this calling to be more, to contribute to the world, to like step into this like leadership role that they just haven't fully like recognized yet.
And I think that phrasing of meant for more or what's next. I know through the COVID period, I think lots of people sort of woke up in a lot of ways and sort of went, what next? What am I actually really here for? That purpose-driven piece. But I really love it that you phrased it around that feeling of made for more, because that encapsulates that feeling, that calling, as you said so well. Yeah. As it relates to that, so with the women that you're working with, and they're coming with that, there's something more. Have you found that there's a commonality with their age brackets, their scenarios? Is there lots of commonalities within that sector? I'm always curious for that.
Yeah, I don't know if this is an official term, but I've labeled it like a quarter life crisis. Like there's a lot of us that are in that like 32, 33 to like 45, 46 range, right? Like we had that like naivety in our 20s and just did what we were told and went into whatever profession that we thought other people were going to be happy for us to do, or we thought was the safest choice. And then we get into the real world and we're like, this is what I'm supposed to spend 40 hours of my life every week doing. So it is kind of that age range of like, no, I'm not going to, I have so much life ahead of me and I'm not going to spend it doing this.
Yeah. And do you find that does it tie into when the kids get to school or they're doing something? Is there a tie-in with children there at all, or is it more around that career and purpose piece that triggers it? They just sort of get to that point where they go, look, there, I've had enough.
I think it's like a combo of both, right? Like I personally don't have children, so some of my clients don't have children either. So it's like this combo, like this career, and then a lot of the other half of my clients are moms that have like 3, 4, 5-year-olds, right? And they're like, I'm missing out on so much of my kids' life, and I want to be there more with my kids and watch them grow up than drive to this place of work, doing work that's not meaningful to me, driving home. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I asked that question because I've only got the one son, and I remember when he was little. Kids are so brutally honest. I reckon they're even more brutally honest now. And I remember him saying to me at one point, I've always worked from home, always had the entrepreneur, but I was always going in and out of the office, and I needed to learn to shut the office door, because he just looked at me with those big eyes like they do, and said, "Mummy, you don't play with me anymore." And it was like, oh my God, because we were going through a really busy stage in scaling a business at the time, and you just get in. I'd gotten into that grind and forgot what was important. And that was, that was the brutally honest moment from, I think he was 3 at the time, and it's just like, oh my gosh, he's 20 now and very good, but you just you don't on that entrepreneurial journey, and the career journey, you just get on the hamster wheel and you just move, and you lose track of the awareness of what's going on so much. And I think that's sort of it's important to highlight for people what the commonalities are, because it helps them all sort of see, oh, yep, that's going on for me right now, and helps them see their own awareness of what's occurring as well.
I think a lot of two of my clients they're wanting that, like, they didn't even know it was possible for them to be entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel like that, just didn't feel like something like, it's not like a safe option when you're coming out of college, right? Start your own business. But these women are reaching an age where they're like building enough self-confidence and like what they want. It's like, there could be something else for me. There could be something more for me. And I could create a legacy for my kids, something different than what I've had or what I grew up in.
So it's almost that permission to start exploring, to discover a new adventure type scenario.
Yeah, to bet on themselves for the first time.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, I'd love to explore with you what coaching actually means to you. So how do you describe either coaching as the methodology or the way in which you deliver your methodology when you're working with clients?
I will just speak from my methodology. I don't want to represent the whole coaching industry because we're all very different. Coaching for me is about education, awareness, and having someone believe in me before I can believe in myself. So I can create awareness and self-confidence as the client, and as the client, learn to have my own back and have the skills and tools to know when I walk away from this coaching relationship, like, I can believe in myself. I can trust myself. I can have my own back. I'm not afraid of emotions. So I can go out there and take risk, and I can experience rejection and have rejection resilience.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I think having somebody believe, going back to what the different coaches I've had, and love the simplicity, but the hugeness of that, in that, having somebody believe in you, just so you can start to believe in yourself. So it's almost like that, enabling you to blossom, to then go through the next scenarios, and then with that self-confidence, that blossoming in that self-confidence, you're dead right. The next sort of trick that trips people up in a lot of cases as an entrepreneur and as a salesperson or business development person is that, that rejection, that it's, and having that resilience around that, which is obviously part of the emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurialism, which they say is, woohoo, that type of scenario. We've all experienced that. So that sort of resilience needs to come in for sure. And you talked about that enabling your clients to be their own source of validation, and I'm going to say inspiration, that you're talking through there. And that's really about, from what I'm hearing, about arming them with the tools that they can be resourceful enough on their own after they've finished with you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I don't believe that coaching should be this codependent relationship, right? Where they're like dependent on me each week to like validate them or affirm them, or like, yeah, this is a great decision. Like, that just creates codependency. And I am pretty anti that type of relationship, right? I very much believe in education, awareness, and empowerment, right? Like, if I teach them the tools, like I use the model, which is STEAR, situation, thought. The thought creates an emotion. The emotion drives the action or inaction. And the action creates the results in your life. So if you want a different result, we have to go back up to the T line, the thought line, and create a different thought, right? So like, I'm teaching them how, like, I'm coaching them through the model, but I'm also teaching them how to self-coach through it, because I'm not going to be here forever, nor do I want to be your coach forever. So you need the skills to be able to like, okay, is this thought factual, or is this thought a story that my primal brain has created, or my primal brain has filled in the gaps for me and has created this story now, right? Like, what is real? And now I get to choose at that point, does this thought serve me or does it not serve me? And then also giving them tools of like, how do we process emotions, right? Like research shows that if we actually sit and acknowledge the emotion, like shame, let's say shame, because all of us hate shame. Shame is like an awful feeling, right?
Made me do that as soon as you said it. Yes.
Shame is like one of my childhood, like, it's like one of my core childhood emotion set. Like that's how I was raised in. And that's like, my brain always wants to go to shame first. So like teaching them like shame, like, oh, here we go. Research. So research shows that if I like sit with shame and I acknowledge like, okay, this feeling is shame. Where is this feeling in my body? Okay, I feel it like maybe here around my heart, right? And this is not woo. Like I'm trying to we're going to stay with science. So I feel that, I see that emotion, I acknowledge it, I feel it, I sit there and I welcome it. I allow it to be here and I breathe through it. The research shows that emotion will only last for 90 seconds.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
But we don't do that.
No.
We're not taught how to process emotions. So we try to resist it, or we try to push it away, or we try to distract ourselves with something else, right? Well, while we resist, persist.
So true. Yes.
Right. So then we're like walking around with shame and we're trying to like Netflix my way out of shame, or scroll my way out of shame, or eat my way out, or drink my way out. Right. Which is just compounding the situation and creating more shame. So then we go days and weeks, and then it just like, I don't know if you have ever read The Body Keeps the Score. Like he talks about like these emotions are stored in our body. It's an energetic, right? It's a chemical reaction. You have a thought, it chemically reacts and creates an emotion, right? It's stored then in the body. So if we don't process it out, it's running in the background and it's driving behavior patterns. So like teaching my clients, like, how do we process these emotions? How do we let them go so we can access the prefrontal cortex? So the higher part of our brain, right? How we can access that and think from a place where a higher level of thinking. We can problem solve. We can critically think and create the emotions that we need to create to take the actions that we want to take to create the results we want to take.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm still gobsmacked is the only phrase I can come up with around the fact that the emotion only lasts for 90 seconds from a science perspective, because how often through that resisting process or pushing it to the side or ignoring it or all the we just keep it and carry it along, carrying it along with us for the next few days. And we then think I'm then thinking of that, that I'm in that emotion for days, but it's the resistance of that emotion from what I'm hearing. Yeah. Is that right? Is that yeah. Wow. That's pretty profound.
Well, can I expand like the neurochemical part of this, right? Yeah. So like if we take the science even further, and this is why like when my clients come to me, I'm all about getting results faster, right? Like I'm a millennial, like I want what I want now. So that's why I neurohack. Like they come in and we test their neurotransmitters and we test their hormones, and part of the hormones like cortisol is a hormone. We test that. Where are you at? Where are you functioning right now at? And because my business partner's a licensed naturopathic doctor, then here's what food or supplements we need to take to get your body to create like these precise levels, right? Because the body has this Goldilocks syndrome. It can't have too much serotonin, which is the self-confidence chemical, and the rejection resilience chemical. We can't have too much serotonin because that creates like an anxiety state in the body. but we can't have too little serotonin because that creates an anxiety state in the body. We have to have that like just right window. So that's why when my clients come in, we test. So that I got to know where you're at to biohack this. We can coach on your thoughts, right? And we can also do nervous system regulation, body up type techniques. But if we're working uphill because your serotonin levels are dysregulated, or your dopamine levels are dysregulated, or your hormone levels are, like, it just slows us down. So why not optimize that to optimize performance? So what I was going to is like processing the emotions. So let's say stress. We all experience stress, right? And we're all familiar with cortisol and stress relationship, right? Well, from a high level of like biochemistry perspective, progesterone. Are you familiar with progesterone? So we have the sex hormones, progesterone, testosterone, and then the 3 estrogens. Progesterone is a precursor to the sex hormones. So it converts down into testosterone and estrogens, right? Progesterone also converts over into cortisol. Okay. So when we're stressed, chronically stressed, our body then is going to prioritize that, because stress just means a threat to my survival is how you're perceiving it. It's going to prioritize progesterone to cortisol, and it's going to downregulate its production of sex hormones. Okay. Well, estrogen has a correlation with dopamine. So now I've downregulated my estrogen because it's prioritizing towards cortisol. So my dopamine's I'm not going to get those wonderful dopamine hits as regularly. And cortisol also impacts, so we have progesterone to cortisol. Cortisol is also associated with norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. Okay. Which also messes with the dopamine conversion, because dopamine goes from norepinephrine and epinephrine, right? So we have this like negative feedback loop. If I'm staying in stress and I'm not processing it, then I'm making my body a higher demand for cortisol and adrenaline, which then forces me into my primal brain, that lower brain, which is all about fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, chronically. So you're living in your lower brain and this cortisol dump 24/7.
Yeah. And it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. You're not able to do quality work. You're not able to be productive like you want to be, right? And it doesn't create any good results, because we're not able to function out of that higher level brain to critically think, problem solve the way we want to. We're burning our body out. We're not getting those dopamine hits. We're not sleeping well because we've now messed up our serotonin pathway, which goes into melatonin, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of visuals that have come up there for me. That cycle of that woo, where you're just going, is literally like putting your foot on the car accelerator and just keeping it there, which is when you describe that you've got a car and you've got your foot on the accelerator and the engine's going woo. It sounds like burnout.
Yeah,
but we don't realize
not only do we have our foot on the accelerator, we have it on the brake at the same time.
Yes, so true. Yes. Yeah, that was my visual, but I didn't express it. That's so true. Yeah, no wonder our body feels the way that it does when we're experiencing that. Yeah. And you also you talked a lot around. I actually had a question in here around the serotonin. So is it a case of increasing the serotonin? Obviously, there's let me ask a different question. When you realize there's a out of whackness, which is obviously what you're doing with the testing, is there a common thing that needs to be done first? Is like there commonalities? Is there we should do this and we should do this, or does that often need to be tailored to the individual? Is it usually driven by serotonin or one of those other ones when things dip?
I think the question I'm hearing you ask is like the protocol different for each individual. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, it's got to be, right? Like, we're all very unique. Our perceptions of the world and our stress resilience are all different. Right. And like, if we get even more, like our biochemical, our microbiome is all very different. Right. So of course the protocol is going to have to be customized to each client. Like what let's see here, what cofactor is what it is. Like, let's say dopamine to go into norepinephrine needs several cofactors, but one of them is vitamin C. So does this individual, like, are there several neural pathways that are off, and is the kind of the underlying, like, a lack of vitamin C? Okay, well, then we got to increase vitamin C in this person. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So one of the things that that I'm also hearing as it relates to that, I know personally I have, and I think most people I speak to have experienced that, what I'm going to call that imbalance, and the symptoms of that imbalance as it relates to their entrepreneurial ism and impact, hence that roller coaster ride, because we've got a roller coaster ride as entrepreneurs across the whole board. We've got a roller coaster ride for sales. We've got a roller coaster for the marketing, because we've often wearing so many different hats. We're always on that roller coaster ride. But what I'm hearing through the conversation that we're having is the way to stabilize yourself through understanding yourself and the way in which your body's working, so we can actually, lessen the kinks. But also understanding that there's probably some commonalities as it relates to the imbalance, which is those chemicals. And I'm also hearing some of the, the typical symptoms that we've all experienced when you ride a high and you've been doing really great things, and then something happens and it just all plummets. You sort of go from that, as you said, that high. And I'm not necessarily meaning day by day. It can be, you can be, I suppose it comes back to that striving. You're striving towards something, and then something happens, and then you've probably been burnt. If I'm looking at myself here as I say this, you're burning the candle at both ends, and then you just sort of fall off the cliff and it dips. How can we help to, I suppose, minimize those, extreme highs and extreme lows for a longevity period? Can you explain how perhaps that what you do helps with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, it really, especially for all of us entrepreneurs, it starts with developing stress resilience. Yeah. And when I say stress resilience, I mean working on your mindset so your brain doesn't perceive so many things as stressful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, stress is going to exist, but when we have a brain that's like living in survival mode all the time, it's going to perceive everything as a threat. So every little thing is going to be stressful.
Stressful, yeah.
Right. So it's building up that stress resilience, and your ability to perceive things and not see it as stressful. Right. To kind of be able to, like, get where your mindset is a lot more just neutral about things. Right. Like when we talk about in coaching and the steer model I was telling you about, like, situation is the S line.
Yeah.
Like, I tell my clients, look, a situation outside of you, it's neutral. It's not good nor bad, but we have a thought that labels that good or bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's like being able to develop a mindset where things are just a little bit more neutral, so that like, instead of having this high, low, like, it just becomes a little bit more not flatlined, but a little bit softer rolling hills. Right. Again, I will hammer this forever. It's the ability to process emotions. We are creating emotions every single day, but most of us are ignoring them, resisting them, or running away from them, or pushing them down.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere. They're running in the background, and we're stacking at that point, right? So if you have the ability to, like, okay, like, here's what I'm feeling right now. Here's the emotion, right? Like, this takes less than like 2 minutes to process an emotion, right? Then we're not, like, stacking all this stuff. Like, we're just processing this happened. And too, honestly, like, that's why I love, like, talking about serotonin. Again, it's a self-confidence and rejection resilience chemical. And how, like, I got onto that was, like, I was talking to my business partner we have a podcast, and I was asking her about Elon Musk. Like, what makes Elon so different from the rest of us, right, to be so successful? And she was like, well, it's serotonin. Like, because when it's in that healthy level, rejection, just, like, for him, he's like, yeah, well, that rocket exploded, and that was $1 million or $100 million for it. Okay, sucks. let's go problem solve it.
Yeah.
Versus a ton of entrepreneurs I know, including myself, learn the hard way type girl. I used to run a CrossFit gym, and my clients would leave and go somewhere else or quit, and it was devastating. I felt like they were breaking up with me. Like, that's literally how it felt. Like, they were breaking up with me, right? And so it would take me days to emotionally, like, recuperate from that. Part of it was my mindset. I didn't have rejection resilience yet, but part of it too, like, my serotonin levels were, like, in the tank. So I was chronically dealing with anxiety. Right. And then, like, to have that rejection just be so devastating. So when I could, like, learn how to create this rejection resilience and balance my serotonin, it didn't become so personal.
Yes. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. No, absolutely beautifully. So thank you. And I think with what you're saying there, it's we've all, as human beings, experienced, those highs and lows, and we and I know for myself, just I'm still stuck on that. Oh my God, it's only 90 seconds to, with an emotion. I mean, that's such a gold nugget that most people don't realize around, working through it. And how much that carries an energy to it. We've all experienced that. And I was just remembering and laughing. My dog's just decided to come in. And when my sister comes here and she's in a stressful state, we've got a dog that's very on people orientated, and it's very gravitated to the people, and wants to sit with you, and wants to be a cuddle, a bit of a smoocher. But when someone's in a state of stress, when my sister came around, she'll sort of come and tap on, just give her a nudge, but she'll come and she'll sit. She won't sit with my sister. She'll sit on the other side of me, almost wanting protection, because she wants to nurture Janet because she taps her, but at the same time, she doesn't want to sit with her because it doesn't feel right. And I obviously animals have an acute awareness, and I actually shared that with Jan, and I said, oh, look what the dog's doing, because she's obviously very aware of how the dog acts and interacts. And I said, then we were able to have a conversation around how she had been in a stressful situation, and it could come in like that whirlwind, and everything was problematic and emotional, and it would have stayed like that had we not leveled it by the awareness around the dog, and that was a beautiful thing to do in the moment. But knowing and having the education and the elements in your toolbox to go, it's let me just deal with this emotion. It's mitigated over that 90 seconds, and understanding that's just blown my socks off. So
I mean, the reality is it's like a chemical reaction that created. It's like energy. That's it. That's it. Right. Yeah. But our brain, when we don't have the awareness, like, it creates a lot of stories around this emotional, energetic response, right? That just keeps
labels. Yep.
And then when you look at neuroscience and you look at the reticular activating system in the brain, which is a filter that's filtering out anything that is not applicable to your beliefs. So will not let your, like the red car thing, right? Like, if you want a red car, you start seeing red cars everywhere. They were always there. It's just your RAS, your reticular activating system, said this information isn't pertinent. I'm not allowing it into her awareness.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what it's doing, right? We're in this stressful state. And then it's like, all right, this is what we're doing. Like, keep looking for more stressful things. Look for more evidence that validates this.
Stack it, put it in the back. Yeah. Make that backpack heavier. Yep.
Yeah. Just keep feeding the story that we're believing, right? And I'm just not a big person that, like, I don't want to believe things that aren't factual. And like, factual is like provable in a court of law, or all 8 billion people will agree. Like, if it's not factual, like, if I'm going to believe in make believe, I'm going to believe in like Harry Potter type stuff, not my own stories that are like causing suffering.
Yeah. And having the awareness around being able to regulate that and self-regulate, and then build on top of it the good elements and the resilience, as you were talking about. That's just it's been paramount. Is there a way to obviously there is, because it's part of your methodology, to increase that serotonin, which is to help with that flight. Is because you talk about biohacks. I'm just curious around some of the biohacks or some of the common biohacks that you do as it relates with your clients to help them sort of balance out some of those things, as well as the toolbox of understanding themselves better.
Yeah, I mean, for us, and I know this isn't like this isn't like information that everybody can just take, right, and apply to them. But the way we do it is like through the testing, and then Dr. Carmen, with her medical background and education, will strategically place in like, okay, for serotonin, like if it's too high or too low, here's specifically either the foods that we need to be taking in, or here's specifically the supplements that are going to be the cofactors that help the building blocks of it. I mean, foundationally, like I guess general information would be like, you got to work on your gut health, right? Like, what is it? 70%? 70% of serotonin is made in your gut.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's either 70% of serotonin or 60%. I get them confused because I know your immune system is one or the other of those two.
Yeah.
So like, you got it. If you don't have good gut health and your body's not absorbing the micronutrients, and if we're not absorbing the micronutrients, then we don't have the foundational building blocks to build these neurochemicals.
So if I come back to the neurochemicals and what we've talked about today, if somebody's is on that entrepreneurial journey and they've been having the highs and lows and all those sorts of things, which is thoughts and emotions and those sorts the elements that we've talked about, it is that balance of understanding yourself, understanding your emotions, but also utilizing and effective neurochemicals, and the things specifically tailored for what you're needing is what's actually going to help fast track bringing it all together. Because for what I'm hearing today, and I'm just really trying to point out, is we can all do great coaching and we can all have great outcomes from the coaching, but the accelerator, which is what I picked up from your website, the accelerator of actually being able to implement and maintain that as an entrepreneur is so acutely tied into the neurochemical side of things as well. So you can provide the toolbox, but if the toolbox is missing the neurochemical of the understanding of what you need in your toolbox as it relates to that, you're not going to get that massive ease and flow and the ability to accelerate your personal growth as well as your professional growth and achieve those goals. You're still going to have that roller coaster ride of the goal achievement because of those imbalances and the lack of resilience as it relates to stress management, and then the rejection and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Can you get there? Can you reach your goals without addressing like the biochemical part? For sure. Like people do it every day. Right. But what I was noticing, how I came up with this is like, being around other coaches and like in a cohort, and like, I was noticing like some people are getting results and like creating these like massive businesses like so quickly. And like, I feel like me personally, I'm climbing Long's Peak, which is like the highest peak in Colorado. I'm climbing Long's Peak with a 75-pound backpack. Like, this is taking so much longer. Like, how can I get there faster? And when Carmen was talking about, like I was talking about Elon, I was like, oh shit, like this is how we get there faster, right? Like, why? I can search my thoughts, I can get coach thoughts, but if my body is dysregulated from my nervous system and I'm living in fight or flight all the time, I'm not accessing that part of my brain that's going to get me where I need to go. And I'm not creating a state where I can easily access self-confidence and rejection resilience. Like it's such a harder, arduous journey for me when I'm not like neurochemically balanced. Right. Yeah. And like, I don't want to promote this, like, or I don't want to like make it sound like Kim's like reached a Zen state and like my fucking brain's like completely like managed. And I'm like, no, I still own a human brain, right? Like I still have a human brain that like loves to tell me stories and loves to it's just trying to take care of me and protect me, right? But I don't deal with anxiety, and I don't deal with depression, and I don't deal, it's so much easier now for me to okay, I see this. Yeah, I spun out in this lack of belief for 3 days because I chose to resist the emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have awareness on that. But then it's okay, I just don't get things are just not as personal, and I stay more in that neutral state, right? I'll give you an example. My husband was in a pretty big car accident, right? He called me and he was obviously upset, and I'm like, I hit someone. Well, did you hit someone walking or in a car? What are we talking about here? And once I found out nobody was hurt, but this is a big deal, I was able to stay in my logical brain. Okay, what steps do I need to take? Who do I need to call to protect our business? Right? I don't show up to the scene crying and hysterical. Very okay, here's the next steps. Who do I need to talk to? I need to get it. I need to record this, right?
Yeah.
And just staying regulated all week and not in this emotional catastrophe,
Yeah.
Which is a gift in of itself. To be able to be in control of my brain and be in control of my emotions and show up how I want to.
Yeah. That is the gift, and I'm glad we've sort of getting towards the end, and we've sort of landed that that is the gift of your legacy, of what you're wanting to share and help women with. And there was a phrase you just said, and I'm just going to highlight this. It was you said you own a human brain, which I'm just going to say there, because I would have felt at times my human brain has owned me. So I think that's what the difference is there in with everything that you've learned through your own coaches, and obviously through the methodologies that you've found for yourself that you're now teaching others. It's giving you the gift of owning your own human brain and managing it, instead of the human brain owning us and managing us.
Yeah.
And that was such an enlightening sentence to say, of somebody that is living what they're teaching and is able to then pass that information, that legacy across to somebody else, because you've got that been there and done it experience, and been there and still doing it experience.
Yeah. Still in the human experience, my friends.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that was just gold. So thank you. Been an absolute pleasure sharing this wisdom and sharing with you. Is there anything else that you're wanting to share with the audience? Certainly let them know how they can connect with you after, and where are the best places to find you.
Yeah, something to leave you guys with. It's just the human experience, and entrepreneurship is the best. It's a lifelong self-development course, right? And it's everything, all your insecurities, all that, it's going to be right here. And getting the tools that you need to get, and being able to have someone help you, all these things that are running in the background that you can't see, and to have a coach that can see it and point it out, and you decide what you want to do with it. Game changer, right?
Yeah.
We are no longer blinded by these blinders. So get the help that you need, because the self-development course is not forgiving. And the way you can find me, KimberlyJarmanCoaching.com. It's my website, Instagram at Kimberly Jarman Coaching, or on TikTok at Kimberly Jarman. So yeah.
Yep, beautiful. And yep, we've got the your website details going across the screen. There's lots of great information on Kimberly's website. As you've probably gathered, I had a lovely time finding some beautiful one-liners to be able to share and talk with Kimberly about today. definitely in that performance space. We've had a great conversation around how you can perform at your best and reach the potential that you're wanting to do. As we've said, entrepreneurialism is that personal development scenario. And one of my coaches said to me many, many years ago, and I think this is a testament to what we've discussed, is, understand yourself or study yourself 95% of the time and strategies 5%. And I think with what you've shared today, understanding how to manage the stress, understanding how to deal with the emotion and actually sit in it and deal with it versus if I think, push it down. Somebody always talked to me about it's like being in a swimming pool with lots and lots of balls and trying to keep them all under the water. It's impossible. But I know for myself, when somebody shared that with me, it's like, oh my God, I'm doing that all the time. No wonder I'm tired and my arms hurt and everything else. There is a much simpler and easier way when you understand how to, you've got the elements in your toolbox to understand how to work with those emotions, thoughts, and creating the right choices, etc.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is great. So one element there that I'd like to also just explore as we just get to the last few minutes is, given your expertise and the people that you're working with and the impact that you're creating, how do you feel is the best way for experts like us to share their knowledge and get their message out there so they can help the impact? Because obviously you're working with people that have, they've found that calling and they're now wanting to leave that legacy and create that impact. What do you suggest from, the being there and done that experience to help people get off on that track or fast track that for themselves?
So what I'm understanding the question is like, what would be my advice to people to creating more exposure for them? Is that it?
Yeah, from themselves. And it's almost that sorry, I had three thoughts going at once and I was trying to work out which one I was going to pick. It's, it's almost that knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? That one little piece of advice as it relates to that, as it relates to getting that impact and that message out there.
That's such a good question. Knowing what I know now, I would have listened to myself.
Yes.
When I started, I was so starstruck by all these coaches that were 7-figure, 8-figure coaches, and they were telling me how to do it like their way that worked for them. And I was like, well, this is the right way. I have to do it their way, right? And it was like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And it was painful for me, and it was also eroding my self-confidence because I was trying to do what they were doing and it wasn't working for me. Yeah. And if I'd have listened to myself, like, what I love is I love talking to people. I love like nerding out to what I'm passionate about, right? I cannot do that in a 30-second reel.
Yeah.
Right? In which did I have to post 3 times a day, 7 days a week? Like, I can't. So I should have listened to myself and like, you know what I love to do is I love to talk to people and connect with people, and I love to coach. That's what I love to do. So I need to go get on podcasts. I need to like have a podcast. I would have done that differently.
Yeah, I'm going to point to my sign behind me, which is my reminder to myself: trust your instincts, because it's so easy when we're starting out to try to be that cardboard cutout, but the cardboard cutouts don't serve anyone. They're certainly not nutritious. Yes, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, and I think that highlight of listening to yourself. And that entrepreneurial journey when you're starting out and you're first working with coaches was such another gold nugget. So thank you very, very much for sharing that with you. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and sharing the ability to share your wisdom with you. So thank you.
I've really had a wonderful time. I hope this was helpful for everybody. It's just a journey for all of us, right? And some things work for us, some things don't. So it's finding, this is just another option that could be something that works for somebody.
Yep, absolutely. And the best way you can find that out is certainly jump onto Kimberly's website, so Kimberly Jarman Coaching. There's lots of great information on there. As I said, there's lots of great one-liners. You'll get a clear understanding of who you're going to get to play with and go on an adventure with. So certainly worth checking that out. getting into an insightful conversation for yourself with Kimberly. So that's the next step. If you're wanting to know what your next step is, that's the next step. There's a
now for a complimentary discovery call. Like, why not? Let's just talk.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you again. An absolute pleasure speaking to you about peak performance and all of the elements that help somebody do that. So we will sign off now and look forward to seeing you another time next week on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Take care.
Thank you.
Remember, if you want to be sought after and sold out, as well as being known as the obvious expert in your industry, you need to speak with Sally, our host of Success Secrets Exposed. Sally is the founder of Monetize Your Content, a done-for-you content marketing agency that helps you be easy to buy. See you next week on another episode of Success Secrets Exposed. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time or Wednesday mornings in Australia on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV.